The Void Ark vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their obsidian hulls absorbing sunlight rather than reflecting it. 37 ships arranged in the ceremonial Spear of Subjugation, pattern that had heralded the end for countless civilizations before. Dr. Maya Patel's hands trembled as she adjusted the Luna Observatory's primary array. "Are you recording this?" she asked her assistant without taking her eyes off the monitor. "Every wavelength, Doctor," he replied, voice barely audible. On the Mars colony's central plaza, holographic fireworks had just illuminated the night sky when communications abruptly cut out. Governor Chen was mid-speech about humanity's peaceful expansion when his image froze, flickered, and disappeared. Confused colonists glanced at their devices, children pointing skyward at what looked like new stars appearing above. Admiral Excel Torax studied the real-time feed with clinical detachment. His 6 eyes blinked in their characteristic sequential pattern, a sign of satisfaction among his kind. "Sir, their defensive capabilities appear even more primitive than intelligence suggested," his weapons officer reported. "No energy shields, no antimatter countermeasures. Proceed with the demonstration." Celtorax replied, setting down his crystalline glass. Standard Erasure Protocol. The Void Ark had long perfected the art of species subjugation. Each conquest followed the same efficient pattern. Identify the second most valuable settlement, destroy it completely, then immediately broadcast terms of surrender while the primary world reeled from shock. In 50,000 years, only 3 species had required a second demonstration. The first antimatter torpedo struck the Olympus Mons Research Center, vaporizing the mountain's northern face and the 30,000 souls within. The atmospheric processing plants followed, then the underground agriculture complexes, then the residential domes. The Void Arch weapons struck with mathematical precision, each targeting population centers while preserving valuable mineral deposits. On Earth, the International Space Defense Coalition scrambled to respond, but their outdated emergency protocols proved useless. Military satellites trained toward deep space found themselves blind to vessels using technology centuries beyond human comprehension. Maya watched through tears as the Habitat Dome, where her husband taught xenobiology to their 7-year-old daughter, disintegrated. Her terminal chimed with an incoming transmission, the colony's final automated distress signal. She accepted it with trembling fingers. "This is Mars Colony Central issuing emergency code black. We are under attack by unknown forces. Casualties." The voice paused, composing itself. "Casualties projected at 100%. Telemetry data attached. Please." The message cut off abruptly. In Washington, D.C., Director of National Intelligence Catherine Ward stormed into the Oval Office without announcement. "Mr. President, we need to activate Lazarus Protocol immediately." The president looked up sharply. "That program was defunded 3 years ago." "No, sir, it wasn't." Ward placed her palm on the presidential desk, activating the hidden biometric scanner. "Colonel Reed was right about everything. We just made it look like we shut him down." Beneath the Pacific Ocean, alarm klaxons roused the secret Tartarus complex from standby mode. Engineers who had spent careers building ships that officially didn't exist rushed to battle stations. Inside a special detention block, armed guards approached Colonel Harrison Reed's cell. "Colonel," the lead guard announced, voice tight with urgency, "you've been reinstated. Full authority, cleared for Omega level." Reed looked up from his desk where he'd been writing in a leather-bound journal. "How many dead?" "Early estimates around 5 million. Sir." Reed closed his journal deliberately, revealing the title written on its cover. "First Contact Genocide Protocol. A Strategic Response." "They followed the playbook exactly as I predicted," he said, standing. "Now we follow mine." The Void Ark victory broadcast reached every screen on Earth simultaneously, the alien text translating itself into all major languages. Below the ultimatum crawled a timer. 72 o'clock. 00. Counting down. But in the Tartarus complex war room, A different clock started. 30 days to Counter-Strike Alpha. Inside the Cheyenne Mountain bunker, 17 world leaders sat in stunned silence as they watched Colonel Reed's presentation. The holographic display showed detailed schematics of Voyage biology, technology, and social structures. Information that should have been impossible to obtain. "How long have you known about them?" asked the Chinese premier, breaking the silence. "We've had a crashed scout ship since 1976, Reed replied. "Recovered in Siberia by a joint U.S.-Soviet team during a brief moment of cooperation." Both sides realized the implications immediately. We weren't alone, and whoever was out there was far beyond us. The display shifted to show orbital surveillance imagery, massive underground facilities on every continent, hidden shipyards in asteroid fields, and submarine bases in the deepest ocean trenches. "The public space programs were always for show," explained Director Ward. "The real work happened elsewhere." Dr. Petal studied the technical readouts with growing disbelief. "These propulsion systems, they're based on my theoretical papers from a decade ago." Reed nodded. "Your research was steered, Doctor. Many of your original ideas were actually concepts we extracted from Voyage technology and carefully introduced into academic circles to seem like natural human innovation." On the Voyage command ship, Admiral Zell-Torax was growing increasingly irritated. The Standard Conquest Protocol should have already produced desperate communications from Earth, pleas for mercy, offers of resources, or at minimum, visible preparations for a futile defense. Instead, human communications continued normally. News channels openly discussed the Mars attack, but with an unsettling calmness. No mass panic. No emergency military movements. Nothing but the same repeating message to the Voyage. "We are calculating our response." Most peculiar, noted science overseer Nathvar, studying behavior pattern analyses. Previous species exhibited predictable neurochemical responses to demonstration strikes, fight, flight, or submission. These humans are exhibiting none of those patterns. They're primitives, Zell-Torax snapped. They've barely achieved nuclear fission. "That's what our intelligence suggests," agreed Nathvar carefully. "Yet I find it curious that all their space activity suddenly ceased when our fleet arrived. No satellites adjust their positions. No spacecraft move. It's as if they simply turned everything off." Back on Earth, in homes across the planet, civilians received emergency broadcast instructions. Billions watched as a solemn-faced woman explained the enactment of Contingency Plan Epsilon, an evacuation protocol directing populations toward designated underground complexes. "This is not a drill," she emphasized. "Bring only essential medications and identification documents. All other necessities will be provided." The public reaction surprised even Colonel Reed. No chaos, minimal resistance. Humanity moved with unexpected discipline. "They're watching this, aren't they?" asked the teenage girl sitting across from Reed. Her name was Sophia Chen, and she had lost her entire family on Mars. "Yes," Reed confirmed. "The Voyage monitor all frequencies." Sophia nodded, her composure remarkable for someone so young. "Good. Then I'm ready." In the lunar observation post, technicians prepared the broadcast array that would deliver Earth's response. No diplomatic language, no professional negotiators, just a 16-year-old girl who had watched her world burn. When the countdown timer reached 0, screens across Earth and on the Voyage command ship activated simultaneously. Sophia Chen's face appeared, her expression neither angry nor fearful, just preternaturally calm. "I am Sophia Chen," she began, her voice steady. "Yesterday I watched your ships kill everyone I have ever loved." On the Voyage command deck, Zell-Torax leaned forward, puzzled by the unexpected messenger. "You believe this demonstration will make us surrender," Sophia continued. "This reveals how little you understand humanity." The camera pulled back, revealing she sat at a simple wooden table. On it rested a single object, a charred, half-melted stuffed animal. You have 30 days to surrender Admiral XL Torax and all who carried out his orders, she stated plainly. This is not a negotiation. Then she smiled, a small, terrible expression that made even the hardened Void Arch commanders shift uncomfortably. We are coming for you. Dr. Patel's breath condensed in the frigid air as the high-speed elevator descended deeper into the Tartarus complex. The digital counter on the wall ticked past 15 kilometers. The temperature drop is from the superconducting rings, explained Admiral Yamamoto, noticing her discomfort. We're approaching the quantum shipworks. The elevator decelerated, its doors opening to reveal a cavern so vast that clouds had formed near its ceiling. Suspended in massive anti-gravity cradles hung vessels unlike anything in humanity's public space programs. Angular, predatory shapes, with hulls that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the harsh industrial lighting. My God, whispered Colonel Reed. How many ships do we have? 173 capital ships, 400 support vessels, Yamamoto replied, plus the Lazarus fleet. The what? Dr. Patil asked. Instead of answering, Yamamoto led them to a sealed observation deck overlooking a separate chamber. As the reinforced windows cleared, Dr. Patil gasped. Inside floated a perfect replica of Mars, complete with its distinctive red landscape and polar caps, except this Mars bristled with weaponry and launch bays. We hollowed out Ceres and built a mobile fortress inside, Yamamoto explained. From a distance, it presents the exact same sensor profile as Mars. We switched them 3 years ago during a perfectly timed solar flare. You're telling me the Mars that was just destroyed was a decoy? Dr. Patel's voice faltered. The colony was real, Reed interjected grimly. The people were real. But the planet itself was a shell, a habitable facade covering a fraction of the actual surface. We needed a genuine colony for the deception to work. Patel's eyes widened in horror. You sacrificed them, used them as bait. No, Yamamoto said sharply. The attack was inevitable once the Void Arch detected our civilization. We simply prepared a countermeasure. The colonists were always meant to be evacuated at the first sign of alien approach. Then why weren't they? Patel demanded. A shadow crossed Yamamoto's face. Politics. The Global Security Council voted to maintain our technological facade, even after our deep space sensors detected the Void Arch fleet 6 months ago. They believed showing any unusual activity might provoke exactly the attack we feared. On the operations floor below, technicians swarmed around holographic displays, preparing the fleet for deployment. The ship's exteriors rippled with a strange luminescent pattern. Metamaterial cloaking, explained Yamamoto, following Patel's gaze. The ships absorb all electromagnetic radiation, completely invisible to conventional sensors. At a nearby console, a young lieutenant looked up sharply. Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity from the Void Arch fleet. They're deploying scout ships toward Earth's orbit. Yamamoto nodded. They're getting nervous about our silence. Right on schedule. He turned to Colonel Reed. Time for Phase 2. Reed checked his watch. 16 days ahead of the ultimatum deadline. They're more unsettled than we anticipated. Good, said Yamamoto, his expression hardening. The sooner they commit their forces, the sooner we can spring the trap. In a sealed laboratory adjacent to the command center, Dr. Patel found herself surrounded by artifacts recovered from the Void Arch scout ship. Technicians had disassembled what appeared to be a neural interface device, its components spread across examination tables. This is what we need you for, explained the lab director, handing her a data tablet. We understand their technology, but not how it interfaces with their biology. Your research on quantum consciousness came remarkably close to explaining it. Patil scrolled through the data, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her moral outrage. This isn't just a communication system, she murmured. It's accessing another dimensional plane entirely. Exactly, the director confirmed. And we believe that's their weakness. They've evolved to depend on this connection. What happens if we sever it? Above, throughout the solar system, humanity's secret fleet remained in their hidden positions, waiting. On Earth's surface, cities appeared abandoned, electromagnetic emissions dropped to pre-industrial levels, and automated systems projected false atmospheric readings to mask the massive movements of people underground. The Voidart had expected surrender or resistance. Instead, they faced something far more unsettling. A prey that vanished before the predator could strike. The cognition bomb detonated silently over the Voidart capital city of Zalnathar. No flash, no shockwave, just a ripple in space-time that expanded outward at the speed of thought. Commander Eliza Chen watched from the bridge of the stealth vessel *, Silent Requiem *, as the city below descended into chaos. Voidart citizens collapsed in streets, their neural networks suddenly severed from the dimensional frequency that had unified their consciousness for millennia. Telemetry confirms 98.7% neural disruption, reported her tactical officer. Their defense grid is down. Chen nodded, fingering the Mars colony tags around her neck. Deploy insertion teams. Priority targets only. Across the planet, 27 human stealth shuttles breached the atmosphere, each carrying elite operatives equipped with phase-shift armor, technology that allowed them to move through solid matter by briefly shifting partially out of normal spacetime. Chen's own team targeted the most heavily defended structure on the planet, the Central Consciousness Archive, where the Voidart stored the accumulated memories and knowledge of their civilization. Intelligence suggested this facility also housed their special research subjects, specimens abducted from other worlds. Perimeter breach in 60 seconds, announced the pilot as their shuttle sliced through the night sky, completely invisible to Voidart sensors. Chen checked her phase pistol. Remember, this is a recovery mission. We locate the human subjects and any relevant intelligence. No unnecessary casualties. A shuttle landed on the archive's crystalline dome. Chen's team activated their phase-shift harnesses and sank through the supposedly impenetrable material like ghosts through fog. They emerged in a vast chamber filled with thousands of suspension pods. Each contained a being from a different species, their bodies connected to a central pillar by gossamer filaments of light. Life signs detected in approximately 30% of pods, reported the team's medic, scanning the chamber. The rest appear to be archived consciousness patterns only, no living bodies. Chen moved swiftly between the rows, searching for human subjects. She found the first in a pod near the center. A girl no older than 8, floating in suspension fluid, her mind clearly linked to the Voidart network. "I found one," she called. "Alive." As her team worked to safely disconnect the child, Chen continued searching. In all, they found 17 human captives, most showing signs of extended captivity. Some had been in the archive for decades. The oldest subject was a man whose pod identified him as Specimen 42, captured in 1953 near Roswell, New Mexico. Despite nearly a century in suspension, his life signs remained stable. "We need to access the central database," Chen ordered, moving toward the pulsing crystal pillar at the chamber's heart. Her tech specialist interfaced with the alien system, downloading terabytes of data in seconds. "Commander, you need to see this," he said, voice tight with controlled rage. On his display appeared detailed Voidart research logs, experiments on human subjects designed to map emotional responses to various stimuli. The most recent entry was dated just before the Mars attack. "Project Terra Subjugation," Chen read aloud. "Final recommendation. Maximum emotional impact requires targeting of juvenile population centers. Advise first demonstration strike to focus on habitats with highest concentration of immature specimens." Her comm unit chimed with Colonel Reed's voice. "Commander, status report." Chen stared at the data, her professional demeanor cracking. "They targeted Mars specifically because of the children, sir," she replied, voice barely steady. "They wanted to study our grief response as a species." A long silence followed. When Reed spoke again, his voice had changed, hardened into something cold and implacable. "Bring that data and the survivors back immediately," he ordered. And Commander, the Prometheus device just moved to priority development. As Chen's team prepared the human captives for evacuation, alarms finally began to sound throughout the facility. The Void Art were adapting to their severed connection faster than expected. "Time to go," Chen announced, securing the last stasis pod. "We have what we came for." What they had was more than intelligence. It was proof that the Void Art weren't just conquerors. They were something far worse. Admiral Xel-Torax found himself in an unprecedented situation, retreating. His flagship accelerated away from the Sol system, accompanied by the remnants of what had been the Imperium's finest battle group. 7 ships remained from the original 37. "Status of the consciousness link," he demanded, stalking the command deck. "Partial restoration achieved," reported his neural technician. "We're operating at approximately 38% normal integration." The disconnect felt like sensory deprivation to species that had evolved with shared consciousness. Individual thought, once a mark of mental deficiency among the Void Ark, had become their only means of functioning. In his private chamber, Xel-Torax studied recovered historical data from Earth's information networks. Unlike the carefully curated archives provided to most Imperium commanders, he had accessed the raw data. Unfiltered, contradictory, and disturbing. He focused on humanity's numerous near-extinction events, beginning with the asteroid that eliminated most large land species 65 million years ago. Most spacefaring species had evolved on planets with stable environments and predictable evolutionary paths. Humanity, by contrast, had survived multiple planetary disasters. "They evolved under pressure we never experienced," he muttered, manipulating the holographic display to show human brain development over evolutionary time. His science officer entered with additional findings. "Admiral, we've confirmed an anomaly in human neural structure. Unlike all cataloged species, their brains contain redundant systems, multiple ways to process the same information." "Inefficient," Xel-Torax commented. "Yet resilient," countered the science officer. "When one processing approach fails, they instinctively try another. It's why their thinking appears chaotic to our monitors. They don't follow predictable neural pathways." Xel-Torax paused at a historical entry about a human conflict called World War I. "They perfected atomic weapons, then stopped using them?" he asked, puzzled. "Not precisely," the science officer explained. "They developed a concept called mutually assured destruction, the understanding that using their most powerful weapons would result in their own annihilation. And this deterred them." Xel-Torax struggled to comprehend. They possessed weapons that could achieve victory, yet chose not to use them. "They redefined victory, Admiral. Survival became more important than dominance." A disturbing thought formed in Xel-Torax's mind. Could they apply this same principle against the Imperium? Before the science officer could respond, the ship's sensors detected a quantum fluctuation. A small human vessel appeared directly ahead, having somehow bypassed all detection systems. "Impossible," whispered Xel-Torax. "No species possesses such technology." On Earth, Dr. Patel worked on an entirely different revelation. Examining the Void Ark neural interface, she had discovered something extraordinary. The dimensional frequency they accessed existed naturally in human brains, particularly in children. "It's here," she explained to Colonel Reed, pointing to brain scans of the rescued captives. "This frequency appears during human REM sleep and certain meditative states. The Void Ark's technology amplifies and harnesses it, but we generate it naturally." "Are you saying we're connected to the same dimensional energy they use for their hive mind?" Reed asked. "Not exactly. We access it briefly, unconsciously. They've evolved complete dependence on it." She projected a complex equation onto the lab's main screen. "This mathematical pattern appears in our oldest cave paintings, in the Nazca lines, in early mathematical proofs. Humanity has been unconsciously trying to express this frequency throughout our history." Reed studied the pattern. "And the rescued children are drawing it because their minds were forcibly connected to it." Patel nodded. The Void Arch didn't just make a strategic error attacking Mars. They made an evolutionary one. They targeted the portion of our species most naturally attuned to the very dimensional frequency they depend on. The laboratory's secure communication system chimed. Commander Chen's face appeared on screen, her expression tense. "Colonel, we've made contact with Cell Thorax's flagship. The archivists were right. The Prometheus prototype works even at partial power." Reed's eyes widened. "You weren't authorized to engage." "We didn't," Chen replied. "But the children did. The moment we came within range of the Void Arch ship, they connected somehow. They're communicating with the dimensional frequency directly." Reed turned to Dr. Patel, who was already rushing to analyze new data flowing across her screens. "It's not a weapon we need," she whispered, understanding dawning in her eyes. "It's a resonance amplifier. The children are the key." The Proxima Centauri shipyard stretched across an entire asteroid belt, a triumph of Krell engineering built under Void Arch enslavement. Worker drones scuttled across half-completed warships like ants on massive carcasses. Commander Chen's stealth shuttle approached cautiously, its sensors detecting unusual energy fluctuations throughout the facility. "Something's wrong," muttered her tactical officer. "The defense grid is operating at minimal capacity." The cognition bomb's effect has reached this far, Chen realized. The Krell, forcibly connected to the Void Arch network, were experiencing the same neural disruption as their masters. Rather than the planned covert insertion, Chen made a bold decision. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Let's see who's listening." The message was simple. Footage of liberated Krell from the Void Arch homeworld, followed by a single question in the Krell mathematical language. "Do you choose freedom?" The response was immediate. Throughout the shipyard, maintenance hatches opened. Krell workers emerged, their compound eyes fixed on the approaching human vessel. No alarm sounded. No defensive measures activated. "They're waiting for us," Chen observed as her shuttle docked at the central hub. Inside, they found something unexpected. The Krell had already begun their rebellion, having felt the neural disruption hours earlier. The Void Arch overseers lay incapacitated, their connection to the hive mind severed by the workers they had thought incapable of resistance. The Krell hive director, a massive specimen with iridescent plating, greeted Chen through a crude translation device. "We sensed the harmony break. You are its source." "We are," Chen confirmed. "The Void Arch attacked our world. We responded." The hive director's antennae quivered. "The severing is temporary." "For now," Chen answered truthfully. "We seek allies, not slaves. We need your shipbuilding expertise." The Krell conferred in their clicking language before the hive director responded. "We have built their vessels for 900 cycles, including weaknesses they do not suspect." A schematic appeared on nearby monitors, critical vulnerability points in every class of Imperium warship. "Why share this now?" Chen asked. "You could free yourselves without our help." "The prophecy," clicked the hive director. "Our ancestral memory speaks of world breakers who would shatter the harmony when the time was right." On Titan, Colonel Reed received Chen's transmission with measured optimism. "One shipyard doesn't win a war," he reminded the assembled command staff. That's when the unexpected visitor arrived. The being materialized in the center of the command center, bypassing all security measures. Humanoid but clearly alien, its skin bore intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mathematics. "I am the archivist," it announced. "We have watched your response to Void Arch aggression with great interest." Security personnel surrounded the intruder, weapons ready. "How did you breach our defenses?" demanded Reed. "Your dimensional barriers are impressive but incomplete," the archivist replied. "We exist partially outside conventional space-time." "We?" Reed inquired. "The Coalition of the Hidden," the being explained. 27 civilizations that survived Void Arch expansion by disappearing from detection. Some for millennia. Reed studied the alien carefully. "And you've chosen now to reveal yourselves." We have waited for a species capable of challenging the Imperium directly. Previous rebellions failed because they fought conventionally. The archivist gestured, creating a holographic display of the galaxy with glowing points representing hidden civilizations. We offer knowledge, resources, and alliance. In exchange for a promise, the archivist stated simply, that humanity will not replace one empire with another. Before Reed could respond, an alert sounded. Dr. Patel's voice came through the communication system, breathless with excitement. Colonel, the children have made contact with 3 other disconnected Void Arch worlds. Spontaneous rebellions are breaking out across the sector. We didn't even know these worlds existed. The archivist's patterns pulsed with something like satisfaction. It begins. The awakening spreads faster than anticipated. What awakening? Reed demanded. The dimensional consciousness the Void Ark harvested but never understood. The archivist explained. They thought it a tool to control. In reality, it was always meant to connect all sentient life, not to dominate it. For the first time since Mars, Colonel Reed allowed himself a smile. It seems we have more allies than we thought. Project Prometheus had transformed the International Space Station beyond recognition. Once a symbol of peaceful scientific cooperation, it now bristled with technology from a dozen species, its original structure barely visible beneath the crystalline growths and quantum stabilizers. Dr. Patel stood before the central chamber where 6 of the rescued children sat in a circle, their minds linked through a modified version of the Voyage neural interface. Unlike the alien technology, which forced connection, this human adaptation invited it, amplifying the children's natural ability to access the dimensional frequency. Their brain activity is synchronized but not uniform, noted Dr. Patel, studying the neural monitors. They maintain individual thought patterns while sharing consciousness. The archivist observed with ancient eyes. This is what the Voyage never achieved. They saw the dimensional consciousness as something to harness and control. Your children see it as a conversation. 8-year-old Mira, the youngest of the group, suddenly opened her eyes. They're coming, she announced. All of them. The tactical display confirmed her warning. Throughout the sector, Void Arch ships were converging on a single location, Jupiter's orbit, where the hidden human fleet maintained its position around the disguised space station. They've located us, Colonel Reed concluded grimly. The Void Arch Council is committing everything they have left. General Santos, commander of Earth's conventional forces, studied the incoming fleet data. Even with the Krell modifications to our ships, we can't match those numbers. We don't need to, Dr. Patel interjected. The Prometheus device isn't designed to win a conventional battle. She brought up a simulation showing a ripple effect spreading across the galaxy. It's meant to permanently alter the dimensional frequency the Void Arch depend on. You're talking about changing a fundamental property of the universe, the general said incredulously. Not changing, corrected the archivist. Restoring. The Void Arch manipulation of the harmony distorted its natural resonance millennia ago. Dr. Patel nodded. The mathematics confirm it. We're not creating something new. We're removing an ancient corruption. But the revelation brought a sobering consequence. The archivist's patterns darkened as it explained. The restoration will have cascading effects throughout the galaxy. Faster than light travel, as currently achieved, will become impossible. Civilizations will be isolated for generations. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had barely begun its journey to the stars. To cut themselves off now. There must be another way, insisted General Santos. One of the children, Elias, age 12, spoke up. There isn't. We can see all possibilities now. His eyes, though open, seemed focused on something beyond the room. The Void Ark have sent a planet killer to Earth. It will arrive in 17 hours. Can we evacuate? Reed asked. Some, Elias replied simply. Not all. Not even most. Dr. Patel looked at the Prometheus device, nearly complete but still untested. If we activate it prematurely, the effects will be unpredictable, finished the archivist. The restoration might be incomplete or too complete. Reality itself could fracture in ways we cannot calculate. From Earth came an unexpected transmission. Sophia Chen, the teenager who had delivered humanity's ultimatum. Now she addressed not the Void Ark, but her own species. "I've spoken with the world's leaders," she announced, her composure still remarkable. "Earth has voted. We choose to activate Prometheus now." Dr. Patel looked to Colonel Reed, whose expression had hardened into resolve. "The children will need to guide the process," she explained. "Their connection to the dimensional frequency is our calibration mechanism." Mira, the youngest, approached Dr. Patel and took her hand. "We know what to do," she said with the strange certainty all the rescued children now possessed. "The frequency taught us while we were captives." On the tactical display, the Void Ark fleet accelerated, weapons systems powering up. They had detected the unusual energy signature of the Prometheus device and recognized the threat. "No more simulations," Dr. Patel said, her voice steady as she made the final adjustments. "It's time to rewrite the rules of reality." The battle for Jupiter's orbit unfolded in eerie silence. Weapon beams lanced through vacuum, hulls ruptured in soundless explosions, and ships maneuvered in deadly choreography, all broadcast to Earth on a slight delay. Aboard the smallest vessel in the human fleet, Captain James Okonkwo navigated through the chaos with preternatural calm. His ship, the Martian Memory *, carried just 8 people. Himself, Dr. Patel, the 6 children, and a simple urn containing ashes from Mars colony. 3 minutes to insertion point, he announced as the ship dove between Void Ark vessels, its experimental drive leaving a wake of distorted spacetime. At the ship's core, the children sat in formation around the Prometheus device, now reduced to a surprisingly small cylinder of intricately etched crystal and alien metal. Their eyes remained closed, but their hands moved in perfect synchronization, adjusting controls only they could perceive. "We're being targeted," warned the tactical system as 5 Void Ark cruisers broke formation to pursue them. "They know what we're carrying," Dr. Patel observed. Captain Okonkwo executed a maneuver that should have torn the ship apart, plunging directly through a gas pocket in Jupiter's upper atmosphere. The ship's hull screamed under the strain, but the pursuing Void Ark vessels couldn't match the trajectory. 2 disintegrated in the attempt. 90 seconds to galactic core alignment, Dr. Patel reported, checking the quantum entanglement readings. "The dimensional frequency is strongest when Earth, Jupiter, and the galactic center form a perfect line." The remaining pursuing ships launched a barrage of antimatter torpedoes. "Brace!" shouted Okonkwo as he rolled the ship. 2 torpedoes missed, but the third struck the aft section, sending the vessel into an uncontrolled spin. Emergency systems failed throughout the ship. Life support flickered. But in the central chamber, the children remained undisturbed, as if existing in a different reality. "Hull breach in engineering," the captain reported grimly. "Manual alignment required." He unstrapped from his chair and pushed toward the navigation controls, fighting the centrifugal force of the spin. His hands danced across the instruments, calculations flowing through his mind faster than conscious thought. 30 seconds to alignment, Dr. Patel called out. That's when the largest Void Ark vessel, Xeltorax's flagship, appeared directly in their path, its weapons ports glowing with gathered energy. "They're powering up their main cannon," Okonkwo said. "Evasive maneuvers impossible with current damage." The children spoke in unison. No need. A shimmering portal opened beside their spinning ship. Through it emerged vessels of designs no human had ever seen, the hidden fleet of the archivists and their allies, materializing from whatever dimensional pocket had concealed them for millennia. "Alignment in 10 seconds, Dr. Patel announced as the newcomers engaged the Void Ark flagship, drawing its fire. The moment stretched, time seeming to slow as the cosmic bodies aligned. Earth, Jupiter, the galactic core. A perfect line across 26,000 light-years of space. In the chamber, Mira opened her eyes. "Now," she whispered. Dr. Patil activated the Prometheus device. No explosion, no dramatic flash, just a subtle ripple that began at the cylinder and expanded outward at the speed of light, a wave of restored reality washing across the cosmos. On the Voidark flagship, Admiral Torax felt it first, a sudden, complete silence in his mind as the corrupted dimensional frequency that had sustained his civilization for 50,000 years simply corrected itself. His ship's systems failed instantly. Around him, across the battlefield, Voidart vessels drifted powerless. The weapons fire ceased. The pursuit ended. Captain Okonkwo stabilized their damaged vessel and checked on their precious cargo. The children sat peacefully, their eyes open now, looking not at the chamber around them, but at something beyond normal perception. "It's beautiful," Mira said simply, "the way it was meant to be." Dr. Patel's instruments confirmed what her eyes couldn't see. The dimensional frequency hadn't been destroyed but transformed, stripped of the void urge manipulation, and returned to its natural state. As they limped back toward Earth, Captain Okonkwo received an unexpected transmission from Torax himself, using primitive radio waves, the only technology still functioning on his vessel. The message was brief, the alien's voice humbled by comprehension, too late in coming. "We understand now what we destroyed, what we could have learned from you." Okonkwo looked at the urn of Martian ashes secured to his console, then at the children whose minds had rewritten the laws of reality. "That," he replied simply, "was the point."